What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new spoiler review for episode 3 of AHSOKA here from the
Geek Buddies.
Hey! We're back at it here, episode 3, the shortest episode so far in the series here, about 30 minutes without credits and without previously on. But there was a lot to get into for sure here in this one between Sabine and AHSOKA and Huyang there as well. We got hyperspace rings. We got Purgills, and that's how you say it. No hard G. Purgills. We also got some New Republic politics rearing its ugly head, a massive space battle, and some new mythology and canon stuff to add to Star Wars for us to discuss here on this particular spoiler review episode. But let's introduce ourselves first. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, where if you go to the Strawberry Shortcake Berry in the Big City YouTube page right now, the most recent episode that aired last weekend was one of mine. Custer's Big Day Out.
That is true.
Nice.
Every episode is an episode of mine, but the episodes that are mine and Shannon's are some of my favorites.
Wow. He slid himself in there, Shan. You gotta love it. You gotta appreciate the plugs for himself. All right, let's go. This one, and look, he works hard on these things, so he deserves to give himself a little bit of a shout out. This one is directed yet again by Steph Green. This episode called "Time to Fly." I'm thinking REO Speedwagon. It's time for me to fly. So I like that. Written by Dave Filoni here. Here's the plot line. Hera tangles with New Republic politics while AHSOKA and Sabine ran voyage to a distant planet. That's the basic gist of this one. And there's a lot that happened here, Michael. Let's get your overall thoughts here before we dive into these sections of the show.
Well, I hate nothing more than a short Star Wars episode. I mean, I just wait. Look,
unless it's animated. Yeah.
Well, I think it's more about expectation. Like when you're going into an animated series and you know every episode is about 22 minutes, 22 to 25 to 26 minutes. When you look at streaming, you're like, okay, cool. That's what I'm in for. I go to watch My Adventures with Superman. I know I'm getting a half-hour episode. I go to watch
Strawberry Shortcake. I know I'm getting a 4-minute episode. You're right.
Getting a 4-minute episode. There's an expectation. When you're going to watch a classic hour long, you're catching up on your SVUs or whatever, you're getting a 44-minute episode. The teasing me with it could be 56 minutes, it could be 42 minutes, and then with those 7 minutes of credits, you're just it drives me a little bit crazy. So when I saw that this episode was clocking in with credits and previously on at about 37, I was like already not thrilled. I was mad about it. But they packed the hell out of those 30 minutes. I mean, they gave us a lot of mythology. They gave us a lot of action. They gave us some really, really cool space stuff. And a lot of my mild concerns in the first 2 episodes kind of went away in this episode. So I thought that this episode was a rip-roaring fun episode for me. Already I'm getting to that antsy, like, all right, we're almost halfway. Where are we going? What are we doing? What's happening? But I had a blast. I really enjoyed all the characters, and I'm excited to talk about some new mythology stuff and everybody's new favorite Mephisto, MARROK.
Like Baroque.
Shin Hati called him MARROK.
She's still learning. She's the Padawan.
Literally went through and was like, how does she say it? Shannon's saying it funny. MARROK, whatever.
As you wish.
The only way you say his name is not Ezra. That's the only way it's officially pronounced.
But maybe Barris. Shannon, listen, you both have hooked me into the bear, and each one of those episodes pretty much are 25 to 28 minutes, except for the occasional 12-minute one or the occasional hour-long one, which is where I'm at right now. We're about to watch that hour-long one in season 2. So you can, homie's still in Denmark. Like, we got homie in Denmark, and then the certain somebody has shown up back into the main dude's life. So, we've seen that you can do really great quality television in 30 minutes. Michael talks about expectations, which is fair considering we had 56 minutes and 42 minutes in the previous 2 episodes. So what did you think of this episode overall, clocking in about 30 minutes? What do you think about what we got?
I mean, everything that we got, I really liked. It was just one of those situations that as the episode ends on Ray Stevenson and credits come up, I mean, and I knew ahead of time because our personal thread had already been lit ablaze.
Yeah, Mr. Gabay.
By the runtime.
This is bullshit. This is
Spoilers!
bullshit.
But the moment that it closes on Ray Stevenson, like I knew it was coming. I'm like, we could do another 20 minutes. We could do another 20 minutes of stuff right now.
Right,
But
right.
I mean, the thing I think we have to kind of learn to trust in Dave Filoni is each episode is as long as it needs to be. You know, some other series have been dinged for filler episodes, and this didn't feel like a filler episode to me. I mean, it felt like here's the information that we need to get across, and here is some fun action. Like I've read a couple of reactions online being like, yeah, you know, maybe this didn't need to be 8 episodes because this was just a pew 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 episode. And it's like, well, Star Wars is pew pew pew. I mean, yeah, to be fair, you know, does it give us a lot more? Yes, but also it is based off of Republic serials. I mean, there is a healthy amount of action, and this one had a great space battle. We had a great you know, training sequence, and also we had a really, really great verbal joust between Hera and some of the senators. So overall, I was really happy. Would I have liked more? Yes, but in the event that they did give us more, it may have been one of those situations of like, hey, maybe you didn't need this. Maybe you could have cut this out. Yeah. So what we got, I was very happy with.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, having seen it 3 times now, because it's, you know, only 30 minutes, so I can certainly watch it over and over again. Not a big deal. I think it gets better with every rewatch because you can let go of all that. You just sit back and enjoy what Filoni was trying to do with this episode. So I did enjoy the episode overall, and I liked the conversations. Yeah, space battles, I've seen them. Those are all cool. The Ahsoka moves were badass when she's on the wing. The conversations, to me, that's what really appealed to me about this episode. The back and forth with Ahsoka and Sabine about the Force, the talk with Huyang about the old Mandalorian Jedi, about how much he's trained, about the changes that have been going on in the Jedi Order, and then the conversation with Hera and Senator XIONO. I mean, the eye standoff, the FU standoff, and the eye standoff, I thought was pretty awesome. So there was a lot here to thoroughly enjoy in this episode. We're going to break it on down here. And again, this is a spoiler review. So if you haven't seen it, go see it. Come on back and hang out with us for the rest of this episode. And if you don't care, then hang on. We're going in. So let's start off here. We start off with Huyang training Sabine. This drill is reminiscent of the samurai technique known as tameshigiri, which was used to test a blade's sharpness with a series of different cuts. He says that she's not good and not bad, and she's getting barely by on the basics. And then Ahsoka wants to level up her training with the ZATOICHI technique, which is essentially training blindfolded. We saw Luke do this in A New Hope. We know that Star Wars has a history of blind Jedi, Kanan Jarrus, Jared Imwe. For me personally, I had a Leonardo DiCaprio moment when they said ZATOICHI, because I have been a massive fan for decades of ZATOICHI, which is the blind samurai swordsman who was played very famously by Shintaro Katsu in a number of films. You can buy them all as a collection on Criterion. He even took on Toshiro Mifune's Yojimbo from Akira Kurosawa fame in one of those films. And then Takeshi Kitano did a remake of that in 2003. So great shout out to Samurai Origins of Star Wars here by calling it the ZATOICHI method. And then they, which is created by novelist Kam Shimazawa. I want to give credit here for that. But we move on here now. Ahsoka training her with wooden blades. These are named Bakken, and the training they're using is very reminiscent to Kenjutsu. So maybe they were doing some of that here back and forth. She tells Sabine that she needs a deeper connection to the Force here. And then she kind of disappears and pops up in a separate place. So does Ahsoka have Force teleportation? I don't know, just throwing it out there to consider. Sabine eventually gets the hang of it for a few seconds. Then Ahsoka takes her down and says, anger and frustration are quick to give power, but also imbalance you. This is something that I've been navigating for about 5 decades in my life. Later, they have a convo about the Force.
That's true.
I'm sure these two gentlemen can confirm. Later, they have a conversation about the Force with Sabine saying she can't feel the Force and she wants to train faster. Ahsoka tells Sabine that the Force is in everything, kind of echoing what Kanan Jarrus, I think, has said before in Rebels, including her. But the ones who learn how to use it have talent, focus, and determination. And that's how she leaves it. She heads to the cockpit with Huyang. They discuss Sabine's progress and they have an interesting back and forth about the Jedi Order and the history of Ahsoka coming from a long line of non-traditional Jedi. Huyang also notes that Jedi standards had held firm for a millennium. Remember, he's been around for 25,000 years, and that they were codified only 1,000 years ago, and this was after the defeat of the Sith, which led to the reformation of the Republic. So Jedi protocols were different in the past. Will this have some connection to James Mangold's movie? I don't know, but certainly it's possible. And he also talks about there were few Mandalorian Jedi, which implies there were more than one, more than Tari Vizsla, who have been Mandalorian Jedi. So that's interesting to throw in as well. Sabine tries to move the cup and can't. Then Ahsoka interrupts her with word from Hera. So, Michael, deceptively a lot in this opening few scenes here for this episode. What are your thoughts about what we got here between all of these characters?
Yeah, echoing what Shannon said earlier, Star Wars fans getting mad about an episode that is pew 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 don't really know Star Wars, but also this is not just a pew 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 episode, as you just laid out. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot of Jedi talk being laid out here that's really, really interesting. So first of all, I think that some of the complaints that I've seen and some of the issues that even I had a little bit was that in the first two episodes, Ahsoka felt a little dour, a little pulled back. And the chemistry between her and Sabine was a little, not non-existent, but there was a lot of issues there that they were working on. And I think opening up with this scene, with the two of them coming in and training together, Ahsoka felt a lot more like the Ahsoka that I know. I think Rosario Dawson was really dropping into it in a really, really nice way. And the two of them had a really nice stuff going on. Seeing her train with Huyang was cool. Huyang is also, I think this episode really makes it clear why they chose Huyang to be the droid of this episode. 100%. When you have an episode where you have Anakin Skywalker's Padawan who walked away from the Jedi Order and wants to do things in a different way, it's great to have the droid that is by her side be literally the expert on all things Jedi of the past 1,000 years, because it leads to some really interesting conversations. And then, I've seen some people say, okay, well, they just did the Luke Obi-Wan thing. We've all seen the blind Jedi training. I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of what made it nice. It felt like coming home to something that we're really familiar with. Seeing Sabine and Ahsoka train in their way. It was beautifully shot. It was beautifully scored. It was a really fun sequence. And I like the echoes of, this is Obi-Wan and Luke. This is, this is all of the younglings in the Jedi Temple. This is a very tried and true method. And I really thought it was a lot of fun. I thought the conversation between Ahsoka and Sabine was very interesting. We're on this sort of road of redefining the Force and Jedi in general. We've gone from you're the chosen one, which is kind of where Luke started. You are descended from the royalty of the Force. Your father was this great Jedi. You are chosen. Here's Excalibur. To the Rian Johnson, very controversial. Hey, you're nobody. You don't have to be the daughter or son of some great Jedi to be a great Jedi. Anybody could be a great Jedi. To what Ahsoka is seemingly saying here, which is, talent is important. Some people are just born natural with a natural affinity. Yeah. But even if you don't have talent, you could be a Jedi. That's kind of a new take on things. And it makes me want to know a lot more about what it is that Ahsoka saw in Sabine originally, why Ahsoka chose to train Sabine, and what Ahsoka's real thoughts are here. I think that they do seem to be setting up this very big discussion about Ahsoka her journeys have led her to have a very different opinion about the Force and Force users than what the Jedi Order has with their, midi-chlorian counters. And let's go find younglings and take them away from let's go find Force-sensitive kids, take them away from their parents and train them at a really young age at the Jedi Temple. So it's going to be really interesting because even when Huyang is she's not going to be a great Jedi, and Ahsoka says, I don't need her to be a Jedi. I need her to be herself. There's some really interesting ideas here that are just sort of scratching the surface in this conversation, but could lead to some pretty big shifts in the way that we think of the Force and the Jedi in general. So I thought all of that was really interesting. I think Huyang saying that Ahsoka comes from a long line of non-traditional Jedis for Star Wars nerds might be one of the lines of the episode. I've seen everybody already posting the pictures. Like, it goes back from, like, it's Ahsoka and Anakin, Anakin and Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon and Dooku, Dooku and Yoda. Like, it literally is, that is the order of Master to Padawan, and putting Sabine there in line with that is really, really exciting. And yeah, you're right. Look, Mandalorians and Jedi traditionally have been against each other. Most of the Mandalorians' technology and armor and jetpacks and everything they have was designed to fight Jedi. Yeah. So Tar Vizsla being this Jedi who created the Darksaber was a big deal. Grogu being a Jedi who chose the Mandalorian path is a big deal. And now Sabine is a pretty big deal. So yeah, I think, look, Dave Filoni has pretty much written the book on Mandalore as far as Star Wars mythology is concerned. So definitely going to be interesting to get more of that. But like, with all of that going on, I mean, again, this is what I said, like, not excited about a half-hour episode, but this is like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And we just got this wealth of knowledge, information, kind of all of these ideas, this Ahsoka's philosophy on the Force, which I think is going to hopefully reap dividends in the long run.
Yeah, it feels like it's reflective of what's going on as we've advanced as a society and embracing more and more about mental health, more and more about philosophy, more and more how we approach the world, more and more about how we see things. And it's fascinating, Shannon. I mean, people seem to forget this is the same Sabine who wielded the Darksaber. So, I mean, this idea that she might have questions about herself just seems so odd. What did you think about the first few scenes we got here of this episode?
Well, I mean, I really like Huyang is becoming my favorite character of the series. He's 3 episodes in. I mean, David Tennant's performance is just so funny. But I like the way that the way that he delivers that last line, talking about Sabine training, is like, you weren't bad, but you weren't good. Yeah. I mean, you set it up as a compliment, and you come in at the end with that strike. And watching Ahsoka and Sabine train, and like I get the whole idea that we've seen Luke do this. We've seen the younglings do it in episode 2. This was different because you're not fighting against a probe droid. You are fighting against a person. And the way it sort of runs contrary to what she would have gotten as a Mandalorian. So, I mean, it's really, really interesting to watch that. And more so than watching Luke or the younglings, I'm like, oh, at some point, Sabine's fighting in the dark. I think that's what this scene really tees up at some point during the series. I also thought in episode 2 of Loki, we were going to see a jet ski at the end of the series. So that may not come to fruition.
There is absolutely a jet ski in the trailer for season 2. So you weren't wrong. You were just early.
I was wrong in my timing. But I mean, I did like the Ahsoka Huyang exchange in the cockpit, talking about how she comes from a long line of, kind of unlikely Jedi. Again, Huyang, very, very funny. And like, I definitely hear what Vogel was saying about maybe some of the dings on Ahsoka in the first 2 episodes, and that she seems a little dour. Well, we've never seen her at this point in her life. So I feel like you kind of have to provide the space for that interesting characters are kind of fluid changing things. And if someone is the same way the whole time, that doesn't always make for the most interesting story. So getting her a little dour, watching her sort of come to life, like the thing that potentially was missing was Sabine. She feels that duty to pass on what she's learned. I mean, so I really enjoyed everything. And watching Sabine with that cup, trying to use the Force to bring that cup to her, and getting the call and be like, well, you win this round. I was like, that's really funny.
Did anybody else? I mean, like, I was having such flashbacks, like the number of times as a kid that I would sit around and like try to use the Force. Like, I'd be like, maybe. Yeah. Like, watching Sabine do that gave me all the childhood flashbacks of me sitting like watching my cereal being like,
yeah, because if it was going to work, it was going to be when no one else was around.
Right. But I kind of liked that they zigged when you thought they were going to zag, that she didn't move it, that she didn't, I like that it wasn't an easy fix. It's going to be a progress, because they're definitely making, as Shannon, you pointed out, they're definitely making it a point that she is not a fully Jedi trained person, that she's got some ways to go. And how is that going to play overall in the story they're telling with her as we go along in these episodes? And she finds herself in these combat situations. I'm real curious to see. And I like what Natasha Liu Bordizzo is doing here. There's a matter of factness. There's not this over aggressive desire to learn. She's very clear about who she is, but she also wants to get into a position where she feels comfortable in situations, but she doesn't get super mad or super angry. And I like that you've got that balance, for lack of a better term, with her and Ahsoka. And Michael, you bring up an excellent point. The fact that you have Ahsoka, who's a non-traditional Jedi, and Huyang, who's been around for 25,000 years, again, you achieve balance. There are things to take from both philosophies that Sabine, I think, is going to borrow from and learn from and become a different type of Jedi in her way, non-traditional, but still evoking what is best of both worlds, which is what a lot of us do in our lives. We pick up philosophies, we pick up ideas, we pick up what works for us. And I like that is an element here as well. And I really enjoyed that Filoni giving a shout out to the samurai origins of Star Wars. This was, for me, this was like I was 10 years old watching my first samurai movie again. Really excited to see this kind of stuff. And I cannot reiterate how much of an idiot I was when they called it Zatoichi, evokes. I lost my shit like a child, man. I do think it's also just worth mentioning really quick. I like a lot of The Force Awakens, and I actually very much like Rey as a character. But I know that one of the general complaints is that Rey was this character that showed up and was instantly very proficient in the Force. And I think what Dave Filoni is doing here is the smarter and ultimately more satisfying storytelling method. Yeah. Like having someone show up and just be like, oh my God, Force mind tricks. Cool. Like we have a character here who is desperately wanting to move a cup. Yeah. And we have a droid saying you're literally the worst Padawan in the history of 25,000 years of Padawans. Yeah. And we have everybody telling her that she can't. And we have Ahsoka being like, look, I know that you can. And so now when Sabine does literally anything Force related, we're all going to be very excited. Yeah. So it's a much different way to sort of build a character through the Force. And again, I don't think that would have necessarily served the story that they created for Force Awakens, but you can see here how it's a more satisfying road to take to have a character that is the underdog. You have to reflect pop culture, right? In 1977, when the first Star Wars movie came out, we were still mystified by everything, and we're obsessed with chosen ones, the chosen ones. Through all our lives, it was the chosen one, right? The right president, the right person to teach us about religion or about philosophy, the right teacher, the right parent. It's all chosen one stuff. Now we're much more aware of how special everybody can be. So the younger generation gravitating to somebody who's being told they can't do it, they're not as good as everybody else. But look, if you focus and you're determined and you have the talent, you can get there. And that's the message from Lizzo to everybody involved. I know it's maybe not the best person, but from everybody involved out there who is being the spokespeople for the younger generation. Taylor Swift, this idea that you can be this thing if you believe in yourself and you're focused and you're determined. So it's a smart move by Filoni to make Sabine reflect that for the younger generations, to hook them into the franchise and hook them back into Star Wars. All right, let's move on to Hera and the New Republic politics, and we'll take a break after this discussion. We cut to the New Republic Defense Fleet with Hera Syndulla, still based at Home One, and she's called into a meeting with the Senate committee. She is warned that Senator Hamato XIONO is there, and for those of you who are well-versed in Star Wars, you know that his son Kaz will be the star of the Star Wars Resistance animated series. She walks in and she's greeted by Mon Mothma and a diverse group of senators, including Senator XIONO, and Mothma asks about young Jason, but Senator XIONO wants to let's move things along here. Hera talks about her investigation on the attack of the Vesper, the Corellia shipyards, and the attack by these Imperial loyalists. One of the senators tries to cover for them by saying they are outliers and that the former Empire people, they all took a loyalty oath. They couldn't possibly be doing this, which is 7 levels of stupid in my opinion. But anyway, Hera believes there are former Imperialists working undercover to bring back Thrawn, which gives Mon Mothma and the senators pause. The word Thrawn gives them pause, just like it gave Hera pause when Ahsoka said Thrawn 2 episodes ago, and she wants to get approval to send a squadron to the Denab system to help Ahsoka, Sabine, and Huyang. The senators, except for Mon Mothma, push back on this, don't believe her. Zhana even accuses her of using New Republic resources in a selfish search for Ezra Bridger. He says Thrawn is dead, and he says Ezra heroically died. He is dead. And Hera calls out Gianno for not fighting in the war. And there's a great fuck you standoff there between them. And even says, I guess she says, I guess you just waited to see who won, to see what side you were going to be on. So a real shot, which, by the way, Mon Mothma does not stop from happening and does not try to get in the way of. It's another senator who jumps in there and says, well, look, the people don't want to fight. The Imperial fleet is scattered and broken. It's not that big of a deal. Hera pushes back and warns him that Thrawn is no regular Imperial officer. And she says how she has lost friends and people that she cared about to Thrawn. And, of course, that refers to Kanan Jarrus here in Season 4 episode Jedi Knight, where that happens. Mon Mothma asks for time to speak to the senators. Then Gianno appears to be playing and to speak to the senators. So we see Hera go out and we see Jason, her son, come in. Jason Karras comes in asking about Sabine training to be a Jedi because Chopper, of course, can't keep his mouth shut and tells him that. And now he wants to be a Jedi. And you can see this flash. I mean, Mary Elizabeth Winstead doing really great work in these two scenes because you see this flash of a little worry when he says that, but she's a mom, so she wants to encourage him. And he says, of course, yes, of course. She says, of course you can be a Jedi. And with that, and of course, I got Kanan Jarrus tears. But Gianno appears to be playing a role associated with corrupt politician Borsik Fela, and Fela in Legends. Fela would eventually become a chancellor himself and was ambitious and self-interested. So that's part of the Thrawn novel. So, Shannon, your thoughts on these two scenes here, the back and forth with the senators and Mon Mothma, and then out there in the corridor with Jason?
I mean, as we open up and we see that shot of a section, at least, of the New Republic fleet, it's just giving me the Return of the Jedi vibes. Like, oh, this looks, from the outside, this looks so good and so put together. And then we go into the scene where we find out why ultimately the New Republic is going to fail. Great to see Genevieve O'Reilly. Like, she's just a dynamite performer. And also just fun watching a character cross over from Rogue One, initially Return of the Jedi, into Rogue One, into Andor, now into Ahsoka. It's just fun to see someone, traverse a character traverse all of that distance. I mean, again, I still am not on the Mary Elizabeth Winstead bandwagon yet.
Okay.
It's not because I don't think she's a phenomenal performer, because I really do. I just want someone a little more maternal, a little more mature, I think, in that role. But her back and forth with Gianno was great. I mean, that moment of, were you in the war? So you just sat back and waited to see who came out on top. Like, that is such a great, to me, that's such a great Andor line. Like, that's something you would have seen with Mon Mothma in her apartment with all of the political intrigue. So that was a blast. I am curious why all of the New Republic senators look like they're about to go to the spa. You see how the Imperials, how the Imperials dress and be like, you know what, we're going way more peace and love. Everybody get your robe on. So I just thought it was great, and to see that the mention of Ezra is a bit of a trigger for Hera. That Hera has this kind of cool, calm exterior until Ezra gets mentioned, and then you see that is something that she's still dealing with. I mean, I think you can look at it the way she spoke about it with Sabine, and it seemed like, okay, she had grieved, she had, I don't want to say moved on, but she had dealt with it. But then you see when she's not speaking to someone that she cares about, that you don't get to bring up his name. Like, oh, I thought that was really, really great. Yeah. Watching her come back out and seeing live action Jason, that was a lot of fun. And yes, the idea that he wants to become a Jedi, knowing what happened to his dad, it's going to be very interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, even though this section was very short, I thought it was very, very satisfying.
Yeah, Mike, there's a lot goes on here in the back and forth. First of all, it's a diverse group of senators, which I think is a really interesting commentary. And then the back and forth about how they don't want to help and they don't want to be a part of this. Are we sliding into a little bit of, I've been saying this on a number of our reviews, are we sliding into a little bit of dangerous territory that the original trilogy doing all the things that it did eventually just leads to a bunch of incompetent fools pissing it all away, which we've seen in history many, many, many times. But does it undercut a little bit of what we get out of the original trilogy overall? What do you think about all that?
I don't think it does, only because I think we're forgetting that there's 30 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. And as Dave Filoni has said, there's only 18 years between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So we've got another 12 years. Like, they fit a lot in those 18 years. We've got another 12 years on top of that. And I think what Filoni's movie or the big event that they're leading to is going to do, like, the New Republic isn't going to, they're not just sitting around being like, okay, do-de-do-de-do, and the Empire, like, runs roughshod over them. Like, they're going to win some battles. Like, they're going to maintain peace in the galaxy for 30 years. Now, letting the First Order build Starkiller Base off in the unknown regions, pretty stupid. But like, yeah, sure. But like, that's J.J. Abrams' fault more than anybody else's. But I think that what they're doing is they are showing how the New Republic is challenged. And it isn't easy to just be like, hey guys, that whole dictatorship really was bad. Let's have this great democracy with, like, we can't handle democracy in our own fucking country. With 50 states, there are hundreds of planets, if not thousands, like, in the galaxy. So kind of trying to get any kind of consensus is insane. So I think, like, I don't think they're going to go down the road of, like, look at these stupid New Republic idiots. Like, I think they're going to have some wins. In fact, so first of all, agreeing with Shannon, you show me some Mon Calamari ships and my little 8-year-old heart gets happy. Like, I love seeing the New Republic fleet. I love seeing Akbar's ship. I love seeing A-Wings that are now painted blue because they're matching the colors of the New Republic. Like, that whole opening shot made me happy. The fact that Hera goes into the room that we saw in Return of the Jedi on Akbar's ship to talk to the Senate, like, it all just geeks me out. To your point about Phalia and the Heir of the Empire, like, this scene that Hera has is more or less exactly what happens in the Heir to the Empire books. Just replace Hera with Leia and replace XIONO with this Bothan Senator Phalia. So, like, Leia showed up, was like, hey guys, we're hearing rumors that there's still a Grand Inquisitor left out there. I keep saying Grand Inquisitor, a Grand Admiral out there. And everyone's like, no, there's no Grand Admirals. What you talking about? And Leia's like, I'm warning you, it's pretty bad. And they're like, no. And Phalia is like, I think you're crazy. So they basically did the same thing here, but replaced Hera with Leia and XIONO and Phalia with XIONO. If you did watch Star Wars Resistance, you know that XIONO's not necessarily working for the Empire. He's just a dick and cowardly. And he's the guy that, like, wherever the winds shift, he's not standing up to anybody. Like, that is basically his character here is in keeping with his character in Resistance. But I do think, I don't trust everybody else. I'm looking at you, lady, who keeps saying the Empire's all gone next to Mon Mothma.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if somebody else up on that little group of senators is secretly working with the Empire. I think we are going to see that the people that are Imperial sympathizers goes pretty high up. So all really interesting. Unlike Shannon, I think I'm on the Mary Elizabeth Winstead bandwagon now. I think first episode, I wasn't sure. Second episode, she was growing on me. I think this scene, I was like, you're still not quite Hera from the animated series, but I like what you're doing. I believe you. I'm feeling you. I thought it was really, really nice. Loved her back and forth. Loved her standing up, that Ezra is a trigger for her, that she really wants to find out what happened to him. And yeah, love seeing live action Jason. I also think, for all the people that think Ahsoka is very confusing and that it's Rebels season 5, which it more or less is, I think they are doing a very nice job of doling out the info slowly. So, like, first 2 episodes, it was like Sabine was Ahsoka's apprentice. It didn't work out. Thrawn is coming. Ezra got rid of Thrawn. This episode gets into more specifics of, like, the last time we saw the Purgills was when Ezra got rid of Thrawn. Oh, Hera has a son. He wants to be a Jedi. They haven't broached the fact that Jason's dad was a Jedi yet. Right. But, like, so it's like they're not dumping.
Yeah.
Yeah. they're not dumping information on people who have never watched the shows. Right. But if you did watch the shows and you're turning to your friends like I did and going, well, his daddy was a Jedi, so. So I thought there was just a lot of really fun stuff, and again, kind of really setting up the beginnings. If you read Heir to the Empire and those Star Wars books, even though Thrawn was a new character in those, you're kind of seeing where things are going, and you're just replacing Ahsoka, Sabine, and Hera with Han, Luke, and Leia tracking down Thrawn, and you kind of see where we're building the blocks to this big event.
Good point. Yeah, good point. And just give a little bit of love to the senators there. Senator XIONO was played by Nelson Lee. Senator Rodrigo, who is the other female senator, Jacqueline Antaramian, she plays him, and Maurice J. Irvin played the other senator on the end there, and Senator Maywood. So yeah, interesting conversations to be had about these senators, which ones are good, which ones are bad. But let's take a break real quick, and then we'll jump into the back half of the episode here right after this. Do 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 do. So just to let you know, we spent 36 minutes on the first two sections. So, all right, let's hit this last section here. Sorry about that. We come back to the ship to hear that Hera can't come along. No ships are coming to help. Ahsoka, Sabine, and Huyang are in the Denab system, drop out of hyperspace. Huyang tells Ahsoka and Sabine about a larger object that he's sensing with a signature that's unknown to him. Suddenly, 6 ships appear behind them, 2 squadrons of 3, led by Shin Hati. She is wearing a Clones War era Jedi headset, which is pretty cool if you go back and watch Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Sabine heads to the tail gun, and we get shades of Han and Luke and Finn shooting out of the tail gun, which is cool. The space battle ensues. Huyang kind of calls them out because they're not working together, and eventually Ahsoka gives in to Sabine, follows Sabine's lead, and they come upon a hyperspace ring here, which is the Eye of Sion that Morgan was talking about in the last episode. Shin Hati warns Morgan that they are entering her sector. Morgan gives her shit for letting them get this far. Then Morgan, kind of like out of Austin Powers, calls for the turbo lasers! And Shin Hati breaks off with MARROK on her wing, and he speaks. MARROK speaks, as you wish. The Eye of Sion shoots as Huyang receives data about the Eye of Sion. Funny scene of Huyang asking them to get closer so they can get more data about the Eye of Sion, which I thought was hilarious. Great flying here from Ahsoka. And just as the scan is complete, we see an explosion. Huyang is out. Sabine ends up running a diagnostic while Ahsoka gets on out there in her space suit on the wing of that ship and has some badass moments here. Shin Hati gives Morgan shit for letting them go and says she'll handle it now. Sabine eventually fixes the ship. Ahsoka gets back in. They take off. And Ahsoka is tracking something else. And oh my God, it's the live action Purgills, the space whales, are here. We get an extended battle sequence here with Shin Hati's crew and Ahsoka and Sabine. And it feels a lot like what we got in Solo with the fight that was going on there, I think with the Kessel Run near the end of the movie there. Ahsoka and Sabine escape close to the surface of Cetos. They set down there amongst the red-leaved trees. And they see Shin and MARROK fly overhead past them. After a few moments, they power back on. But Sabine has a moment and says she hasn't seen the Purgills since Ezra disappeared. So very emotional moment there. Huyang tells him that the Eye of Sion has not finished being constructed with a final hyperdrive that is being set into position. He also tells them it's a hyperspace ring, but one that Huyang has never seen on this scale, and says that this craft can make a hyperspace jump of astonishing speed and distance. And this is just a real quick Lucasfilm Star Wars High Republic Transmedia Initiative has revealed the history of the hyperspace ring. It was actually associated with a group of space pirates known as the Nihil and must have been subsequently adopted by the Republic. Ahsoka asks if it could make a jump to a neighboring galaxy. Huyang says yes, if the people operating it knew the coordinates and navigation. He reveals that the Jedi archives speak of intergalactic hyperspace lanes between galaxies that used to follow the migration paths of star whales named Purgill. That is huge, huge stuff. So are we talking about inhabitants of many galaxies crossing the void in ancient history? We shall see. And then we end up with Baylan, who senses them there in the forest and sends his people, who include HK assassination droids, down there to hunt them down. So, Michael, a lot in the space battle, a lot revealed here in the mythology of Star Wars as well. Your thoughts on this stuff?
I mean, overall, I just sat there kind of smiling, being like, I can't believe we get like space battles like this on TV. Like this was great. I mean, it was a full Star Wars space battle. It felt like classic Star Wars. It felt like the best episodes of Clone Wars and Rebels. Like it really was just the Star Wars space battle that you love come to life. You had your bad guys, you know, you had your mysterious masked Inquisitor. Shin Hati is getting sassier and sassier every episode. Like it's a blast. And I love the idea, you know, Ahsoka gave a little bit here. Like she was kind of giving Sabine the whole feel the force. And Sabine was like, bitch, we getting shot at. And she was like, okay, what do you want to do? And like watching them sort of team up, it was nice. Like seeing them both sort of master and apprentice come a little bit closer together was a nice moment for the two of them in the middle of all the action. And then, and then Ahsoka going out onto the wing with her lightsabers. I mean, who doesn't love that? Like, how do you not go, okay, well, that was awesome. I mean, that was just great. And even like getting back in, Sabine sort of hit like shifting the wing so that Ahsoka can catch it and then wrap around and hop in. Like it was all just really, really, really well done. Yeah. I can't wait for every freaking person on Twitter to start analyzing MARROK's voice and his as you wish and being like, okay, well, I had seen people being like, well, when they were flying around the Purgills, MARROK he looked to the side because he was looking at the Purgills, which means it must be Ezra. And I'm like, oh my God, he really is the new Mephisto. He is the new Mephisto. He is just going to be some dude who was an Inquisitor. And it was Star Killer, Cal Kestis, Barriss Offee, the clone of Luke, clone of Ahsoka, Snoke Jr. Like, I mean, literally every freaking thing in the world. I'm like, just let the dude be. Let him be cool. Like, let's just wait and see. The other thing that I found really interesting, like Morgan Elsbeth and Shin Hati's Cold War is great. And I'm curious to see where it goes. Like from the first episode where she like looked over at Baylan and was like, she's a witch. And then everything since then, and this whole like Morgan Elsbeth being like, I'm surprised you let them get this close. And then Shin Hati's like, congratulations, Elsbeth or Morgan, you almost got her. I've got her. Like these two do not like each other. I'm curious, as much as we talk about Baylan and like wanting to know more about his past and like he's got a level of honor to him and what's his deal. Is Shin Hati gonna go full dark side? Like, is she leaning like they're like between Morgan and Baylan and Shin and MARROK, they've actually given us 4 villains that are all really different and have mysteries of their own and are all really compelling, which is really kind of great to do. Like they've created 4 characters that are all really fun and fascinating. Seeing the Purgill in live action is just a joy. And it was, again, beautifully shot. Them swooping around them, getting lost, like losing MARROK and Shin as they sort of wrap around the Purgill. Like it was a fantastic, awesome sequence that then established the Purgill again in that whole like let's dole information out slowly. We've now seen them. Hey, I haven't seen them since Ezra got rid of Thrawn. They're just sort of like taking the new audience in and saying we're going to give you this in bits and pieces. And yeah, then the information that Huyang has at the end. The Nihil in the High Republic are way more than just space pirates. They are like the big bad guys in the High Republic books. And their ability to sort of navigate hyperspace lanes in ways that nobody else could was like the reason that they became as powerful as they did in the High Republic. So definitely makes sense to tie them into everything. And then this idea that the Purgill are sort of the originators of hyperspace, that people back in the day before we had all these hyperspace lanes or had computers that had the ability to navigate hyperspace, you had to either follow Purgills or you had to be force sensitive so that you could sort of feel where you were going and didn't, fly into a planet. So this idea that Jedi long ago traveled the hyperspace lanes, like really, really interesting stuff that was beginning to be established in Rebels. But now I think, again, feels like it's going to take us into an entire new chapter of Star Wars, like opening things up to other galaxies, other places, things we've never seen or done before. Like there's an opportunity to really expand things in directions that we never thought they would go that could be really great for Star Wars as a brand in the long term.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is Filoni going, look, I'm not going to throw a bunch of mystical, magic and out there stuff at you all at once. We're going to slowly work into it. I'm going to slowly bring you along with this. So the pacing, as you said, Michael, over and over again in this review, just so perfectly pointed out by you, because that is exactly what's happening here. Slow, even for the people who've seen Rebels, slowly ramping you back up into this world and showing you all this stuff and getting you reacquainted with all this stuff and what's happening here and where we're going with all of this. Because clearly we're going to be jumping within worlds, jumping in galaxies. There's a lot coming. So you've got to lay the groundwork very firmly so that people will go along with you on these journeys. Shannon, your thoughts on what we got here in these in the pew pew section of this episode, and then all the stuff and conversation and mythology that we got revealed as well.
I mean, I super enjoyed it. I mean, you can ding Marvel or certain Star Wars shows for effects, but this is not one of those sequences. I mean, this sequence just looked really, really, really good. I thought it was super funny that when Sabine went to the gun, and she tells Ahsoka, "Oh, you got rid of my presets." I thought that was a nice little shout out to the gaming community, but also it's kind of a nice window into their relationship. That's basically saying, "Oh, you got rid of my toothbrush," and Ahsoka's saying, "I didn't need it." So watching how their partnership is not working at the beginning, and Ahsoka being the one to give in, to be like, you know what, she's actually the one with the guns. I need to do what I can do to make her her aim better.
Right.
And watching her get on Sabine's side, like, all right, I'm going to go on your call. I thought that was really, really nice. MARROK speaks. He did say "as you wish," which is, something Vader said in episode 4. So is this a clone of Anakin? Who knows? Or is it a dude in a helmet? Again, I'm pretty sure that helmet's coming off at some point. I don't know if they're, it's someone of note underneath it, but I'm pretty sure that helmet's going to come off at some point. I thought the whole battle was fun. I got more Empire vibes, but instead of an asteroid belt, it's the tentacles of a Purgill, which I thought was so much fun. The rivalry between Elsbeth and Shin, I think, is just gorgeous. It's just so much fun to watch these two passive aggressively, take shots at each other. And as they get down on the ground, when Ahsoka goes out onto the wing, which I thought was badass. Yeah. I do think maybe they're, for folks that are not as into the Star Wars universe as, folks like the three of us and our audience, having some sort of clarification how she's able to stay on the wing might have been helpful, like magnetic boots and gate, whatever, some sort of reason that there's, that's why she's not floating off into space. But watching her deflect turbo laser fire with her lightsabers was super awesome. And again, watching her being able to slice a ship in half goes to show you the power of the lightsaber, but also the power of the wielder, which I thought was just awesome. Watching them get down onto Cetos, seeing that great shot of Ray Stevenson. Again, that was just, I just wanted more. I just wanted it to keep going at that point. And I thought, what he said to the droids, when he said hunt them down, he didn't say kill them. Because I don't think he wants to kill Ahsoka. Yeah. But yeah, I thought the conclusion was great.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier, Mike, was interesting too. Like, we've got these 4 villains, but they are wild cards in interesting ways, because we don't know with Shin Hati and this, as Shannon so accurately pointed out, this passive aggressive relationship with Morgan Elsbeth is an interesting dynamic to throw in all of this. And then with Baylan doing what he's doing, there's a nobility to Baylan that although he did wipe out everybody on the New Republic ship in the first episode, there is a nobility with how he reveres or speaks about Ahsoka. And so there's something here to be explored. Morgan Elsbeth is basically going to sacrifice the whole damn world to bring Thrawn back, or galaxy to bring Thrawn back. So everybody's expendable in her mind. And then MARROK, we don't know what we have in MARROK or who MARROK is. So it's going to be curious to see what his allegiance is going to be if stuff starts to fall apart. Which side is he going to go on? Does he kill Baylan under Shin Hati's control? Because remember, Shin Hati is the one guiding him in this battle throughout the sequence with Ahsoka and Sabine. So just a lot of interesting X factors to throw in with these villains for sure.
I will say, I'm mad that I'm even saying this, but like I was going back through Rebels and I watched the episode where Ezra and Maul went to Dathomir and went to see the Night Sisters who were all dead, and like the Night Sisters took people over, and like they were all, Kanan and Ezra were fighting each other. And then I was reading online, which is a valid point, like everyone is like, why is there this ancient map that was in this old Night Sisters temple for like hundreds of years that says where Thrawn and Ezra are, if Thrawn and Ezra only disappeared like, 5, however many years ago they disappeared, 5 years ago. And I was like, man, okay, like, so like if Ezra like literally nerded out hard in my head, I'm like, okay, so like if Ezra still had access to the world between worlds that he had at the end of Rebels, and he could go back through time, and like he needed to get people a message, and so he had this map, and then the Night Sisters found the map, and they knew it was going to happen, and then like they found, like, I literally was like building a case on why MARROK could be Ezra in my head as I was like, I don't think it's Ezra, I don't want it to be Ezra. So keeping score for everybody, like, all bets are on the table, but I still don't want it to be Ezra. But I'm starting to like be like, okay, well, that would answer that question. So it's going to be interesting. I think the idea that there's this ancient map that says, here's where these people disappeared to, who disappeared 5 years ago on space whales. I'm like, that is okay, interesting. I don't know. So I recognize that I am now Mephistoing, as we did so well so long ago.
Wow.
Whoop. Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
So very, very possible that's what's going on for sure. Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure a lot to be revealed. Shannon, any final words on this episode?
I mean, to play devil's advocate here, if you put a character in a mask, you don't have to worry about an actor. You get a really good stunt performer who's very physical, and you don't have to worry about line readings. So there's an argument to be made for that.
I mean, it is true that, like, I know for final words, but saying that, like, Boba Fett became one of the most popular characters in Star Wars, and nobody took his helmet off for 20 odd years. Like, he was just cool because he was mysterious. And I will say that I think what's great about MARROK so far is, despite the theorizing that literally the entire internet is doing right now, it's because he's a cool character. That even if he just turns out to be some badass inquisitor, like, they've successfully created that air of mystery around a character that you want to have. Like, he's cool.
Yeah.
That's why we're thinking he could be this, that, or the other thing. But regardless of if he is somebody or is nobody, like, he's a fun, cool character to add to the mix of these villains.
Yeah, and I'll say this to wrap up my thoughts. I think this was a fantastic episode, and I think it's doing double duty. And I wonder if years from now, we're going to look back on this episode as having laid the groundwork for not only Filoni's movie, but possibly James Mangold's movie that's going back to the birth of the Jedi. And these elements and these things that were revealed in this episode will be things that tie into that, both of those movies overall. And I'll be curious to see that.
And Rey's movie.
And Rey's movie, of course.
I hope what Star Wars and Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy and everybody took away from the new trilogy is, don't make it up as you go along.
Right.
Like, Ahsoka is saying some very specific things about what it means to be a Jedi. And like John said, we know we have a movie coming about the origins of the Jedi. And we know that Rey's movie is going to be about her rebuilding the Jedi Order. And the Jedi Order and what they did right and what they did wrong is the connective tissue from the High Republic to the Knights of the Old Republic to the original trilogy to the prequel. That's the thing that connects it. And so I hope that what is being established here, to John's point, is the beginnings of them saying this is what it means to be a Jedi.
Yeah. And what you said earlier, a new way of approaching the Jedi and expanding it out to fit the tastes that are happening now in our pop culture. All right. Well, there you go. That's our spoiler review for episode 3. Time for me to fly. No, it's time to fly here from Steph Green, director Steph Green, doing another wonderful job with action. For God's sakes, hand this woman a feature film at some point down the road in Star Wars. Or if you run a franchise, any franchise, look at her. Marvel, DC, look at her. Fast and Furious, fuck it. Look at her as someone you want to hire to direct an installment in your franchise. Just throwing it out there. Plus, and I know I'm going to get shit for this possibly, I love that this was all women. I thought this was a great thing. It occurred to me as I was watching, like, this is all female actors. Yeah, MARROK is a male actor, but it's in a helmet, in a costume. Yes, David Tennant is voicing Huyang, and we only get Balin right at the end. So I like that we got the senators a little bit, but this was very much female focused, female driven with these female actors. And it was nice to see that as a balance to all the years that we've gotten all male people doing these kinds of stories. So I kind of enjoy that. So just giving a shout out on that end. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this review. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel and let him know the proper way to pronounce MARROK, it's at MKToon. And if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha and tell him to keep Fast and Furious away from Steph Green, Steph Green deserves better, it's at the Rocha Says.
Hey, that paycheck is nice. Michael, what do you got there?
Look, we hope you enjoyed this episode, the theorizing, the love, and Shannon's bad attitude. We hope you liked all of it. And here's what you can do to keep us doing what we do. You can smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, leave your comments below. What do you like? What do you hate? What do you think of MARROK? Like, let us know all of it below. If you're listening to this podcast, go ahead and leave us some stars and some comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. All right, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time. Look for our main show coming out later this week, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review episode here of Ahsoka on the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!